Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole. I'm UpStack social media specialist, and today I'm happy to be chatting with George, UpStack COO, in a session all about failure. So that might seem like not the most upbeat topic in the world, but when thinking about what lessons could best serve startup founders and team leaders or anyone leading a team, we discovered that the ability to not only learn how to accept failure, but also how to learn from it so that you experience a long-lasting positive outcome is one of the major keys for career success. I'm excited to talk with George on this topic and learn more about his personal experience with failure. Welcome, George. Thank you for being here today.
Hey Nicole, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, definitely. And talking about failure is something that I've been used to do for quite some time, since I've experienced it. I would say throughout my career, just at least a dozen times. And if I were to start with something, I would just say that at some point we all fail. I mean, it's inevitable, and in the end, it's all about failing the right way and learn, or failing the wrong way and learn nothing at all. So this is how I usually try to um, focus on when failing and or when studying about failing. If I
Mm-hmm.
were to if I were to define failure, I would say that most of people just think about failure as lack of success, right?
Right.
And I think, in essence, people all around the globe, they're just trying to avoid failure at all cost. They're not trying to embrace it or think to failure as part of their way towards success.
Mm-hmm.
And we use the words to describe failure when it comes to relationship, when it comes to businesses, about our health, our bodies, or simply about other people who just don't perform as we think they should. Usually, that's what people refer when they talk about failure. And I would like to personally start with focusing on some of the positive aspects of failure rather than focusing on the negative part of it. And I would say on the first slide, I did mention a couple of them. And I do encourage everyone to not be scared about failing. I do encourage everyone to embrace failure, learn from it, take action on what went wrong, and most importantly, analyze, change, and
Mm-hmm.
apply. It is extremely important on your way to success, whether that's on a personal level, on a professional level, um, on you. It is extremely important that you analyze exactly what's not going well, what's not going according to your plan. Make the changes that are required in order for you to get back on that plan and apply those changes. One of the things that people usually don't do is they don't create a routine
Mm-hmm.
to apply the changes that are required for them to succeed.
Yeah.
This is what I've actually noticed from working with so many people in the past couple of years, more than a decade actually. Um, I would say that it is extremely hard for everyone to just accept a single small failure, like even like not getting up in the morning at the right time, or hitting that snooze button way too many times. This is still a failure, and
That's definitely.
people just don't accept that. While if you accept that, snoozing too much is a failure, and you try to change it and you apply the change to that,
Mhm.
it might lead you to the success of waking up at the right time, not being late to whatever you're doing, whether it's work or just, meeting with friends or working out or whatever you do in your life. It's all about applying the changes that you want to do with your life. There's on slide 2, there's one quote that I've found on an article a while back, and the quote says, "Success teaches you what to repeat, failure what to change." So it goes back to the first slide where I was talking about a lot about changes. But let's talk a bit about success teaches you what to repeat, and what does that mean? It means that whenever you're successful, you usually try to keep doing that, but at some point you're gonna hit the wall, you're gonna hit the ceiling. So that's when you actually have to go back and change something in order to keep being successful. So whether you're successful or you're failing, change is still your best friend. You still have to apply the changes according to the scenario you're in order to be successful. And there's actually one exercise that we're doing right now at UpStack. We're trying to implement a new system that hopefully is going to work across the whole company, and it's going to help us reach the next level. This system is actually called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And on this book, actually, it's a book followed by a system. They talk a lot about hitting the ceiling, about company culture, about people, about failure as well, but not using this word. They talk about letting go of the vine, things like that. And I do find myself into this book, and after analyzing even more this system, I was thinking about even more benefits of failure, which I managed to write them down in slide 3. I know this is debatable, of course. There can be literally a few dozen benefits of failure. I just stop by 3 of them, which is being vulnerable. I actually think this is extremely important for anyone, no matter what their position is in a company. And I'm not trying to speak only from a professional point of view. I'm just trying to speak on a whole wide level, like professional and personal as well. Being vulnerable doesn't necessarily mean that you're weak, or that you simply, you simply open yourself to people and let them do whatever they want with you. Being vulnerable actually means accepting failure.
Yeah,
that's how I see it. That's how I see it. Vulnerability equals accepting failure. And when you embrace failure, when you accept failure, that's when you, as previously said, that's when you climb the ladder of success. There's so many pictures on the internet with failure on a ladder, and at the top of the ladder is success. So what I'm trying to say again, it looks like I keep repeating myself, but it's I think it's the core essence of failure. Admitting when you failed, do the changes that you have to do so you don't fail anymore. That's the recipe for a success. Another benefit that I see when you embrace failure is being honest. Accept when you fail, be honest with your mistakes, and focus on improving. Face the facts, pretty much, right? And the third one that I see is taking responsibility, which is extremely important, especially when you're in a leadership position. Don't blame others for your failures.
Right.
Leaders shouldn't do that. A true leader takes responsibility for their failures. A true leader goes to his team and to his people and not convince them, but makes them realize when they fail. Because when you fail as a team, you also fail as individuals, and that's definitely not gonna go in the direction that you want to go. So we can go on and on and on about discussing about failure, what it is, how to embrace it. But I think I would be very interested in hearing about a couple of your questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer to any of them based on my short, little, or long experience that I have so far.
Yeah. Well, when you were talking about that ladder of like how many failures it takes to keep growing and keep challenging yourself and reach success, I think one of the things I realized was what makes failure so difficult for people to move past is that people see it as more like a personal fault, like attacking their own character, or they feel so much negativity towards themselves that it prevents them from moving on and really growing. So do you have advice for how people can lessen that negative impact on themselves in order to move forward?
My advice for people that feel that way is I usually don't like to refer books or to ask people to just go to a coach or speak with people about this or try to embrace. It's all about you, how you accept feedback, how you accept failure. It's all about you. I mean, it's nothing that I can do. I can try and not convince you, but I can try and I don't know how to put this. I can try and explain to you why accepting failure is good. But in the end, it's all about you if you want to accept that or not. So I'm not sure if it answers your question, but I hope it does. If it doesn't, just let me know and I'll try to rephrase it.
Well, I think also I've learned to do that over time. So maybe it's just with time consistently, but like over time, we're surrounded by failures. So the more it happens, the more comfortable you feel with it. And the more comfortable you feel with it, the more likely you are to accept it quickly and move on to keep changing. So
it's a very small, not small, it's a very thin line from having too many failures, accepting, embracing them, and moving forward towards your success, or just drop into a deep depression and potentially ruin your life with bad decisions, or stop fighting for your goals and for your success. So it is important to accept failure, but at the same time, it is important to work hard enough so that you minimize failure. Mm-hmm. Because let's face it, people,
yeah,
exactly, having too many failures, it might lead you into a extremely bad situation or a wrong direction that you don't want to be in. Mm-hmm. With this world rapid environment we're all in, and so many high expectations from work, from personal lives, sometimes it is too much, and you have to be mentally extremely strong to be able to successfully pass failure after failure after failure. Now, it also depends on how big the failure is. It can be something as small as not hitting your target at work, or it can be as something as big as, failing in your marriage or not getting along with your parents on your personal life. And I think we all know that personal life and the work life, professional life, they are extremely connected. So when one suffers, the other
The
one
other.
suffers as well. So that's why accepting failure on all fronts, it is extremely important, and working on changing and applying those changes according to the failure that's happening in your life, it's important.
I agree. And when you think about maybe one of your earliest career failures, do you remember what that was like and what lesson you took from that? It could be like anything from earlier in your career.
Early in my career, I was definitely too impatient, and I was rushing and responding back to people, or rushing into making decisions. Being young, at the starting point of my career, trying to show people how good I am or how fast I am. I was definitely being too impatient, and don't tell anyone, but I sometimes I still am like that, and I'm trying to control it. I try to guide my life, both professional and personal, by the 5 seconds rule. I'm not sure if you heard of it, but every time I get a feedback, because that's usually what, let's say, takes us off our comfort zone. Whenever I take a feedback, I try to sit back, wait for like 5 seconds before I start drafting a reply. Why? I always try to think and put myself on the other person's shoes, and try to understand how that person feels at that time, what problems that person might have, how he or she is at home, how cluttered with work that person might be on that period or that day or that week or something like that. So I try to not be that impatient anymore, and I try to respond in a nice, calm manner. And I'm trying to take not too much time, but I'm trying to make the best decision simply by giving it a little bit more thought and a little bit more time, and not rush anymore. So I would say being too impatient and rushing in to making decisions, that was the beginning of my career failures.
Got it. A great advice. I'm also sometimes like that. And yeah, the more I realize like life's not a race and I could take my time with things, game changer. And thinking also back to that, was there ever a failure moment that you had that at the time seemed really negative, or how you didn't know how you would move forward, but in the end ended up being a really positive impact on your life?
Yeah, there is one actually. I think I do remember it very well. It was back in 2013. I wasn't that at I wasn't at the beginning of my career. I started my career sometime in between 2008 2010, and I was on my own at that time, having my own outsourcing company, doing pretty much the same thing that we're doing now. And there's been one hell of a night. I used to work late nights. I've always worked with the U.S. time zone, and when I was all alone, I had to do lots of things, and my presence was required late nights as well. And one night, um, I've pretty much lost all the projects that I had at that point. I was I was almost at that time. I just moved out from my parents' house with my girlfriend. I was pretty much just taking the life straight into my chest, and I was trying to move the mountains. And one night, everything ruined. I was like, I didn't know what happened. It was an extremely bad night. the next day when I woke up, actually, that was when my wife, my girlfriend at that time, encouraged me the most and helped me pass this failure. That next day, I worked so hard in recovering almost half of the projects that I've lost. Don't ask me how, because I simply do not remember. And I did manage to win 2 new projects as well, which was fantastic. So when my wife came home from work, I was like, "Here are my results for the day." But what I've learned from that failure was I tried on that day to change my perception, and I actually decided to focus more on positivity and optimism
Right.
instead of worrying too much or being too pessimistic the whole time. And also, what I've tried to do at the same time, I try to still keep my feet on the ground, and I try to be realistic the whole day. It's a very thin line between being realistic and pessimistic. Usually, it's you have to explain when you're being realistic because people think you're being pessimistic. And I just try to be realistic each day, keep my feet on the ground. Just take each issue and each success one by one, and just try to do things properly.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. That's the fastest recovery I've ever heard. Like from one day to the next.
It was the hardest, but somehow I don't know. Whether I was lucky enough to recover fast, or I just I was so motivated that I managed to recover so fast, but I did it. So I'm happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. And mindset is everything. That is extremely accurate. And then, so bringing it back to present day in your current role at UpStack, have you experienced any feelings with failure since you've been COO, and how has that affected you, or how has that altered your perception of anything?
Oh, yes. I would say I've experienced many failures as a COO, and most of these failures as a COO were related to the lack of communication or miscommunication. And it's something that I continuously try to improve. And I also preach about this a lot. I mean, we've done another episode, and I think I spoke a lot about communication back then. I'm not afraid to admit that I do fail as well sometime in communication, especially in this remote environment that we're in, and especially on this text environment, because we do text a lot. It's impossible to just be 8 hours a day on a meeting. You just have to work async, and you have to use text for that. So there's been lots of times when I either didn't communicate it or I miscommunicated, and I was frustrated because things were not done the way I wanted or as fast as I wanted. But when I realized that the problem was actually from my end because I didn't communicate it properly, that's when I started to change things. And I still work on that, and I still try to improve that. And I still try to be a much better communicator than I am each day.
Do you think that is one of the continual challenges of being in an all remote environment and company?
Not only on the remote environment company, but on all environments. No matter if it's remote or on site, the communication is the number one key factor that requires constant improvement and constant work from everyone, especially from the leadership team of a company.
Very true. And then one of my last questions is, if you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be? For any young person struggling right now, we just need advice.
I would say don't get too emotional, but still be involved and give 110% of everything you've got.
Okay. Without, what do you mean by not being too emotional?
By not being too emotional, I actually mean don't take things personally.
Right. The biggest failure is
most of the times we take things personally, and that kind of converts into a failure, because instead of just jumping on a call or just discuss with the person that you are communicating to and clear the air, we're getting emotional. We potentially respond back in a bad way. So that's what I mean when I said don't get too emotional, but at the same time still be involved. It's something that I've learned the hard way, actually.
Right. To not have an emotionally charged response to something when a quick clarification could resolve it, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Very helpful. Thank you. I don't have any other questions today, but this was all very valuable, and I think our audience would take a lot from it. So thank you again so much for sharing your wisdom and the presentation. I will be uploading this to YouTube. And yeah, thank you so much, George. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Likewise, always a pleasure, Nicole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.